of Israel people imagine, and the state of Israel that really exists. And people have this romantic idea of the state of Israel, whether positive or negative, that doesn't really exist. And the reality is just a country that people make too much out of, them, much more than what it really is. That being what I just want to address is, why did I say, because I do stand by the words I said, but I do want to clarify, because in the article they then interviewed a Reform rabbi who was saying, oh, he's not opposed to Erev. Well, I didn't say a Reform rabbi would be opposed to Erev, even though there have been cases of Reform and even shockingly conservative rabbis expressing opposition to Erevin. Which is really weird and not really clear why that should be. But that's, I would say, is an exception to the rule. When I specifically said, and they quoted me properly, that it's the self-hating Jews who want to destroy all religion that impose these type of things. And it's not anti-Semitism, because for the most part there isn't really much anti-Semitism. The whole concept of anti-Semitism is a misnomer, because Judaism is a religion and not a race. And it's really these type of approach that created this concept of anti-Semitism. That somehow Jews are a race instead of a religion. Of course, Reformed Jews are religious Jews. We have this parlance that says, the Orthodox are the religious ones, and so I'm not religious. I'm Reformed. That's not true. Reformed, conservative, Reconstructionist, whatever you want, are religious expressions of Judaism. Humanist Judaism, I would say, is not, although one might argue in a certain sense of the term religion it is, although to me it's not. To me that's an aberration to have a totally atheist form that calls itself Judaism and not just a Jewish identity. But colloquially, we tend to say that the Reform are not religious. It's not true. The Reform are very religious. They just have a different way of expressing their religion, and sometimes their religious beliefs are statedly different. A major example is the doctrine of the resurrection, which in general Orthodoxy accepts as the main doctrine, as not the main doctrine, but a major doctrine that separates the heretic from the believer. Has historically been the doctrine of the resurrection. Meaning the Sadducees apparently rejected the resurrection. Most likely it's true that they rejected it. And we see the Chazal and Mishnah describe Sadducees as their ideology is not the ideology of Israel. It's not Jewish. It's not a Jewish ideology. It's a different ideology. It's heretical. And to the point where they discuss the issues of whether or not the Sadducees keep laws of mikvah. This says, if they're the daughters of the Sadducees, if they do like the custom of their fathers, or they do like the custom of Israel, meaning they're essentially saying that the Sadducees are not following Judaism. If there are people who deny the divinity of the Torah, not just the oral Torah, somewhat different, but sometimes it's essentially the same. There are various movements within the conservative movement, various streams, as is evident from their response to literature. Excuse me, I wanted to hold back and blow my nose. I just can't do it. I'm sorry. I'm trying to be more self-aware, but I just couldn't hold it anymore. It was too painful. And certainly aspects of practice, again, they are central in our religion, but are not necessarily, I'm not going to say, I mean, you hear these ridiculous things that people say, that, being upset that women want to put fill-in or something like that. There's, I think there's mana in this day and age, not because times have changed, but because people have been raised in a certain way, and we have to understand where they're coming from, and they don't know any better. To have some more tolerance for things like this, but neither here nor there. It's not the point we want to talk about right now. But the tolerance at least has to be a two-way street. That's really the point that I want to say, is that there's much more anti-Orthodox sentiment on the left than there is non-Orthodox sentiment on the Orthodox side, and that's how it should be. There should be no non-Orthodox sentiment on the Orthodox side, because we're supposed to love our fellow human beings, and the only real issues we should, the only ones we're obligated to hate are the people who specifically have chosen to fight against God. Meaning, even if someone is a personal enemy, we are still supposed to love them. It's only the enemies of God that we're supposed to hate, as it says in the Psalms, that those who hate you, O Lord, I hate. It's a biblical prerogative. But beyond that, we're supposed to love everybody, or at least we're not supposed to hate anybody. Meaning, just because someone is different, that's not a reason to hate. And just because someone hates us personally is not a reason to hate back. The only justification to hate back more or less are the canary in the coal mine of religious freedom in America. The left wants to wipe out religious freedom. They want to impose Marxist ideas. The extreme left, I don't mean the average person who just follows the left, not knowing the sources of the left. There are a lot of well-meaning people who get swept up into the left because they think it's compassionate, and they just don't know the true history of what the left is really all about, and the true outcomes that history has shown of what the left has produced. So again, the average person who votes Democrat is not in this category, but their leadership is, and they've fooled the masses into believing a false narrative about their history and their culture and their ideology. Although there is more and more of a sense of bringing out the real feelings into the forefront, and there has been the general breakdown of society that this is fed into. So again, I'm not painting with a broad brush. There are very few people who are behind these movements, and then people get swept up into the same thing you see in Mahwah. You see what looks like a very diverse crowd. That's because people are not aware of what things are really about, and who's really trying to manipulate them. And really, if you care about freedom, you care about what America was founded on, you care about the Constitution, you care about personal property rights, religious freedom, all of these things, you would be on the side of the Hasidim. And it's interesting, I watched 2 videos on this subject, and in one case they're interviewing a person who himself is Jewish, and he was very, very opposed to the Arab. And in another video they're interviewing someone who I would assume is not Jewish, who openly says that this opposition to the Arabism, what his words are, is anti-Semitism. Because really, that's the real fight here. There was another article in the Forward that discussed how the Jewish right is in a dangerous situation with making dangerous alliances with the non-Jewish right against Muslims. And I didn't read the article, but I kind of got the gist of what the article was going to be about from the headlines. Sometimes it's enough to read the headlines, or it could be, I'm assuming, something that's not there, and if that's so, I admit my fault. But I agree with that approach of the Forward there, because it is wrong, in my opinion. These anti-Sharia approaches and so forth are very, very dangerous and very wrong, because I think there has to be a recognition, though, of the difference between theocratic and violent Sharia and personal, civil, and ceremonial Sharia, just as it's the same with Halakha, meaning the difference is Jewish law, for the most part, not that the laws have changed, not that the laws haven't changed either. There are changes that happen in Jewish law. It is a living and breathing law. It is a Torah's Chaim, a living Torah. But it's also not anything you want it to be. There are parameters in which, how does halacha work, and so I don't know enough, and I know that there are discussions that are quite similar to the discussions in Jewish law, but all of these rallies to ban Sharia are going to bite us back. Now, I don't know how many of these people are Orthodox who really care what the effect will be, but you hear, and I don't have a major problem with Sean Hannity, but he's not my favorite among the talk show hosts. I'd much rather listen to Glenn Beck or Mark Levin, who are more focused on the common person, but there are these, these bloodlines that have been preserved in mostly the Sabbatean Frankist movements, Rothschild family and so forth. A lot of people think that that's anti-Semitic to bring that up, and it's not, because it's pointing out, it's really trying to save the Jewish people from these entities that are trying to destroy our society, but it really doesn't matter all these things because God is in control. But it's good to be aware. Awareness is always good. That being said, so I'm not saying that the common everyday Jew is like this, but there are elements that are not only trying to destroy Judaism, but trying to destroy Christianity and destroy the constitutional foundation of America. This is where the communist movements come in that say religion is the opiate of the masses, and all these ideas that really come from very sinister sources. But still, God is in control. God is above all of this. So that's really what I want to bring out here. Again, people are going to think I'm crazy for saying it, but I'm basing this on source material. And there is a lot of things online about the Nephilim and so forth. Maybe I should have taken. In any event, my point is that the real fight here is not about Jews against non-Jews. It's not about Orthodox Jews against people who are not Orthodox Jews, whether they're Jews or non-Jews. The issue is not anti-Semitism. The issue is really anti-Americanism, anti-religious extremism in general. That there is a concerted effort to wipe out religion. And replace religion with something else, things like this. And groups who oppose the Hasidic communities are just testing the waters, seeing how much can we get away with. How much, meaning once, and what you have to really understand is really, in a sense, there's been an infiltration onto the quote-unquote right, especially the quote-unquote alt-right. A lot of this anti-Muslim ideology is also rooted in the same anti-religious sentiment, meaning if you are successful in attacking these unpopular groups like Muslims and Hasidic Jews and so forth, then what's going to happen is you're just paving the way for anti-Christian success. And anti-American success, and breaking down, you're setting precedents to break down religious freedom. That's what's really going on here, and people have to be aware of this. People have to stand up against this and not be swept into this. And the answer is libertarianism, really. The answer is you you do your thing, I do my thing, and it's not because all these things that people say against the Hasidic community are very much exaggerated, and for the most part, all these things would be solved if a libertarian approach were embraced. The issues with school districts and zoning and all these things, it really, because the Hasidic community, they're not just fighting for themselves, they're fighting for everybody. If they can get what they want, everyone can get what they want, and we can stand up against the fascists who want to undermine freedom, undermine private property rights, religious freedom, and so forth, and which America was founded on. And there's been this concerted effort for over 100 years, from the 120 years already, from the progressive movement to undermine freedom in this country and replace and turn this country into like a European-style country. And we have to stand up against it, and we have to be aware and not let prejudices cloud our mind. That's the thing, is that so many people will jump on the bandwagon because someone's going to use, it's them, it's this group and that, and instead of seeing us all as, one family of mankind, and we have our own different ways and so forth. That's really what the whole issue is here. So basically, that's what I have to share with us today. Thank you for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe. And the thing is, there's nothing wrong with wanting to preserve who you are, and to be yourself, Alright, God bless. Please like, share, and subscribe. Thank you for watching, and make comments, even the nasty comments I appreciate, because that means you're watching my video. So, just, more money in my pocket, so. Alright, not that it's that much, but I don't know, maybe it adds up. God bless you. Be well. Thank you.